Okay. Welcome to Convocation today. I'm very excited that you've decided to join us. We have a couple of great speakers today. They are colleagues of mine in the Division of Humanities and also very good friends. First off, well, they'll both kind of go back and forth today to talk with us a little bit about the Peace Corps and their time serving in the Peace Corps. If any of you are interested in serving in the Peace Corps, I'm sure that they would welcome afterwards, that you come up afterwards and talk with them and ask your questions. But right now I want to tell you a little bit about them. First of all, Dr. Rachel Keller. She has a Ph.D. from the University of New Mexico, and she specializes in modern American literature, composition, and secondary education. She has extensive teaching experience at the college level, secondary, and abroad in West Africa, where she served as a Peace Corps volunteer. After 2 years in Cape Verde, West Africa, she and her husband moved to Ephraim, where she teaches a variety of classes in the English department at Snow College. They have 2 children, Towns and Maggie, who love blackberries, not the actual fruit, okay. And Rachel is also the swim coach for the Manti High School swim team. Now, Professor Jeannie Kleinhans is originally from Wisconsin, but she's taught English as a foreign language in 4 countries, including twice with the Peace Corps in Estonia and China. At Snow College, she teaches ESL and TESL, which is teaching English as a second language. She has a passion for material creation and would like to put together open source teaching materials. She loves working with international students and learning about their cultures. And recently, she has taught me how to play mahjong, so we enjoy doing that together. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rachel Keller and Professor Jeannie Kleinhans to the stage.
Those are my students. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, and we're so excited to be able to tell you about our experiences and hopefully get some future volunteers from this. So we'll start out. So I'm Jeannie Kleinhans, just you know which is which.
And I'm Rachel.
And like I said, we both served in the Peace Corps and have just loved it. So let's tell you a little bit about Peace Corps in general and our experiences. So the mission and goals of Peace Corps. Peace Corps promotes world peace and friendship by its 3 main goals: helping the people of interested countries in meeting their needs for trained men and women. And we will talk about which areas and what kind of training Peace Corps offers. Promoting a better understanding of Americans on the part of people served. You are representing your country while over there. And promoting a better understanding of others on the part of Americans. So it's kind of like coming back and spreading the news about what it's like in these other cultures as well.
I think you're better at typing than I am.
I think it's just.
And if you want to press start.
Oops.
Got it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so we'll both talk a little bit about why we joined the Peace Corps. We're different people and we had different reasons, and you'll all have different reasons for why you might be interested or not. But for me, I had finished graduate school and I was just newly married, and my husband and I made a commitment that before we started earning money, we would serve. We had had so many people pour into our lives and do awesome things for us, professors, parents, grandparents, and we had just been the recipients of a lot. And so we thought that it would make perfect sense before we started making money for ourselves to sort of serve others. So that was our primary goal, is to serve. And so then we also wanted to travel and learn a new language and experience other cultures together. We thought that would be so nice. And then one of the things that we really liked about Peace Corps, it was a long-term service commitment over a short term. So I had done things before. I had lived overseas for 6 months, smaller amounts of time, but I really wanted the chance to have an actual lived experience. So we'll talk about this later, but Peace Corps is 27 months. And so that's really living and learning about a place. So we wanted something that was longer term. So those are the reasons that we did it.
Okay. And then for me, as Cheryl mentioned, I did this twice. So the first time I learned about it, I got an email from my university, and they were looking for volunteers to go, I think, to some island somewhere. And I've been traveling abroad since I was 13, and I have a father who loves to travel, so it's kind of in my blood. And I'm like, that would be really interesting. And so I just, again, culture to me is really valuable to learn and to just experience it firsthand is really the best way to do it. And I also, I went to college with like a literature major, and everybody told me, why don't you become a teacher, right? Maybe some of you have heard, I had dreams of being a writer, right? And everybody wants a fallback career. And so I always thought, well, if I'm going to teach, I'm going to teach abroad, So at least I get the culture part as in addition to teaching, which I may or may not like. I did like it. And Peace Corps, and we'll talk more, I think, too. It's just they take care of the logistics, the training, security, all these things. They do such a good job that I trusted them. And after doing it the first time, I had heard horror stories about people teaching in China, and I'm like, well, I know if I go to China through the Peace Corps, I'll be okay.
So we're going to talk a little bit about once we, both of us had kind of similar experiences, actually, people's responses, and maybe they're yours. I find that still when I talk to students who are interested in Peace Corps or my own colleagues who ask me about it or things like that. And the question that came up the most for me, and that still comes up, is people want to know why I would go somewhere else to help people, right? There are people right here who need help, and that's true. There are people in the United States who need help, and that service matters. And so I had a lot of people ask me why I would go somewhere else to help instead of staying here. And that's actually a pretty common question. And so what I would say is that I have 3 things here, and they're really important to me, so I'll hit on all of them. But people are people everywhere. People who need help here are people who need help everywhere. And so for my mind, if I'm helping one person, it doesn't really matter where I'm helping them so long as I'm helping them. In other words, I don't necessarily feel a larger obligation to help someone because we live in the same place. My job's to help people everywhere I go, right? And so for me, my husband and I thought we could be well served helping anywhere. And so because we wanted to travel and see different things and live other places and learn about other people, what we sort of decided is that no matter where we are, we should be helping people. So as people ask me that question over the years, I've always just said, well, so long as you're helping, right? It doesn't really matter where or who, so long as you're serving. And so that was really what informed our choice to help, because the reality is, as we're seeing now in 2022, we're in it together. We're either going to all go down together or we're going to survive together, and that becomes more important each day. So I think Peace Corps does a really good job showing that, right?
Mm-hmm. The other one. That's it. Oh boy, I can't even, I guess the color wasn't good. So the question I got was actually about money. Like, you just spent 4 years getting your degree. Why would you spend another 2 years continuing to be poor, right? When you've got your degree, get a job. I was actually working as a technical writer, making some pretty good money. And, they're like, why do that? And I know, for me personally, it is about, can't quite see it, but it's about the experience. To me, there's more to life than money. To me, what I want at the end of my life is to say that I did things, I experienced things. And, Peace Corps was just like a really good, safe, interesting way to do that.
Okay, so if you're interested yet, I hope you are. We'll talk to you a little bit about how it works. So you're overseas for 27 months. At this point, I have people ask me if you can choose where you go. So you can't choose, but Peace Corps tries to honor your request.
Actually, I didn't realize. Last time I did it, there were 5 countries you could choose.
Yeah.
Mongolia and China were the 2 that I remember. I don't remember what the other 3 are. So I don't know if they have changed that. But if you really want to go to China or Mongolia, you
You
can
could.
choose.
You
Yeah,
could
yeah.
choose,
And I was so
yeah.
excited because I'm like, yes, I want to go to China. So
Generally, what they'll ask you if those 5 aren't your preference is they'll let you select regions, and they'll let you select your top 3 regions that you want to, and then the no-go. Everybody gets to put down at least one no-go, like I don't want to go there, right? And they try really hard to honor that. So you'll be placed somewhere for 27 months. So that's 3 months where you train in the country, and then they send you to your post somewhere in your country on your own, and you serve for 2 years after that. So they have 6 program areas. So education, which is what you would think it would be, right? Teaching, oftentimes it's working. You can work with smaller, younger children all the way up through college. So I taught college at the Peace Corps, but it depends. Health, so if you have any sort of health training in college, any sort of training in that area, that's probably where they'll place you. Youth and community development, so this is what my husband did. I taught at the college, and my husband worked at a boys' orphanage, so he worked with the kids all day long. Business and information and communications and technology. So on my islands, one of the things that they were working on really hard, because I was on where I went in Cape Verde, it's a set of islands off the west coast, and they're all separated, and there are water shortages, and there are technology shortages because you're out in the middle of the ocean. And so they had a lot of people working on consistent, reliable internet for businesses, things like that. So a lot of the volunteers were there doing that. Agriculture. A lot of people on our island were working on hydroponics and things like that. And then also environment. So where we were stationed, environmental tourism was huge. So people would come to the islands to take like hikes around the volcanoes or to go see more tropical areas, and people from all over Europe would pay great money to come to these islands, and it was a way to kind of build industry. And so people who had degrees in any sort of environmental areas could work and serve in the Peace Corps. And then they will also train you in language, cross-cultural, and technical training. So wherever they place you, they'll train you. And I'm not sure if this comes later in a slide, but we should probably say it now. Peace Corps there's nothing out of your pocket. So they fly you to the country, they provide you with health care, they give you food and rent and everything to live on. And then if you have a medical emergency, they fly you back to the States. And then when you're done, they give you what's called a resettlement allowance, which has grown every year. But I think like 10 years ago, mine was close to $8,000. So, and so it's grown every year. So they'll give you money when you come back to get back on your feet. So there's nothing that's coming out of your pocket if you decide to serve, which is pretty awesome. So, volunteer facts. Okay, 2 more for me. Okay, so you can see from the breakdown that the vast majority of Peace Corps volunteers do education, but there's large work being done in health, particularly in the HIV and AIDS crisis. You'll see a lot of that for Peace Corps volunteers. And you can go all the way down and you can see what people do. But basically, whatever degree that you get, Peace Corps can make use of it, and they can place you in a position that's going to use the schooling and the training that you've had. So imagine what that looks like when you come back, right? You've completed over 2 years in a field, actually in your field of study. That looks amazing, and it's such an awesome opportunity to have the chance to work in your field like that and be trained and placed. So.
all right, so these are just some examples of where volunteers go. And actually, where I went the first time, Estonia, isn't even blue because about 3 years after I left, they decided, I mean, again, we're there to help them get to a certain level of development. And they're like, no, we're good. So I was like, great, we're done. But yeah, so all parts of the world, and different areas need different things, as she was saying. I guess we'll talk about this more with our particular countries, but so yes, as she said earlier, you can choose certain regions. I specifically asked for some place where the seasons changed the first time around, and I got sent to one of the northernmost places, and so yes, in the winter, it was really, really cold and really, really dark, and in the summer, you hung your blanket on the wall because it was really, really light. So they got me what I wanted, and I really enjoyed it.
That's awesome, Jean. So like I said, my husband and I asked to serve somewhere in Africa. I had lived on the continent before by myself, and I wanted to go back and live with my husband. So we got stationed to Cape Verde, which is a group of islands. You can Google it, right off the west coast of Africa. They were colonized by the Portuguese. And my husband and I were stationed on São Vicente, and it was beautiful and amazing. And when I show people pictures from it, they're always like, that's not what I imagine Peace Corps looks like. We were on it was a port, right? There was a port, so that's where all the main training was for Cape Verde. So our home overlooked the port on the ocean, the bay, and it was just beautiful. I think people have different ideas about what Peace Corps looks like, and it looks different for every volunteer based on where you are and what you're doing. So some things looked really normal, like I got to look at a beautiful ocean every day and those sorts of things. I had internet most of the time, but some things look different. I didn't have a washing machine, so I had to wash my clothes on a washboard. We didn't have showers. Did you have a shower, Jeannie?
I had showers, but I'll talk about my squat toilet in a moment.
Yeah. So we took bucket baths for 2 years, right? And Cape Verde was warm the whole time, so on Christmas, everybody ran out into the ocean when it turned midnight. So do you know what I mean? There are things that are different each place you go. Some things are like home and some things aren't, but that's the beauty of it. And you can sort of ask for what you think would suit you best or what you would like most, but we really enjoyed it. I would say that the thing that was the most difficult for me was living on a place so small that I could walk across it in 3 hours. It was really stressful in some ways because there was just nowhere to go, right? You were surrounded by ocean and there was no getting out. And a couple of times we had volunteers who had really serious health crises, and you have to get on a boat, and then you have to get on another boat, and then you have to get on a plane. So, it works both ways, but we came out so much stronger for it, and we really enjoyed it, and we think our match really fit us, so.
All right. So yes, my first place was Estonia. That's the top, and we were actually called Peace Corps Baltics because the volunteers went to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And so when we had our yearly conferences, we actually went to Riga, Latvia, and I did lots of things with volunteers in the other countries as well. And it was living in a Soviet-style apartment is how I would describe it, very cement, and, I was lucky I was on the 4th floor and we had an elevator. Anything smaller than that did not have elevators, so I was lucky in that regards. But in a lot of ways, we had a Peace Corps medical officer come from Nepal. And she said, wow, you guys really work here. Because in Nepal, things just take more time and get slower. And there were things we were doing all the time, going and doing teacher training things and all sorts of other competitions and things like that. So we were really busy. And actually, we had 2 types of volunteers. We had the English teachers, and I taught in middle school, high school setting, but we also had NGO small business development volunteers. So one word of advice, if that is your area, or if you are not focused on teaching, but in healthcare, I had another friend who did the AIDS awareness things. You all end up teaching some English. So go ahead and take a TESL course while you're here, because it'll really help you, because that is one thing they all kind of need. And then, like I said, I had been traveling in other countries and teaching, and I'm like, I really want to go to China. Like I said, I heard bad things. I'm like, well, I'm just going to join the Peace Corps. So I called them up and I said, well, I want to go to China. And they're like, you're in luck. You can actually choose that. So I got sent to Gansu province. That's the part in red. I kind of call it the Utah of China because it is kind of, up in the northwest. It is kind of dry and sparsely populated. And somehow I got to be the lucky, only volunteer I think I know of who had a squat toilet in my apartment. Everybody else got a Western toilet, but every day I'd be squatting down, and it's a shower squat toilet combination. Oh yes, I have. I showed that picture to people, and all the men are like, "Oh, that's really convenient." So there's some pluses to that, everything at the same time, you know. But most of the volunteers that go to China are off in the West, because the East, again, is more developed in general and has more experience with Westerners. So we were in this province. I should have highlighted the other ones. Chengdu is where our offices are located, so we would have our conferences down there, our training in the language and the culture, as she said, and your specific field. Really great training. And now, too, they have I don't know if they have this in here, but if you do if you're, like I said, teaching English as a second language is your major, you can get a certificate now. They didn't used to have that, but they have now developed this program where you do your experience and you write some papers and you can get a certificate when you're done. So that was really useful.
We're kind of on, but I'll do it. It's okay.
Oh, it's still me. If you want.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So let's talk about safety and security. Yes. Bad things can happen. I have heard of some serious, my friend got medevaced to Thailand, actually, once. I think it was a tooth issue, but they do such a good job of taking care of you. We had a medical officer. We usually have like one from the country and maybe one from the US. So there's this nice sort of overlap of being within the system, knowing how the system in the country works, but being comfortable with someone who knows your culture and things related to medicine that way. So that was always really nice to have. And as you were saying too, we had various trainings that also involved about staying safe within your community and how to do that. And just being a part of your community. That's kind of why it's 2 years, because they want you. They all say the first year, you're just trying to figure it out.
You're surviving.
Yeah, you're surviving, you're making relationships and so forth. It's the second year when you get things done. So creating this sense of community is kind of so important.
And I would just add, while she goes to the next slide, what was really nice is that I had the best health care I've ever had for free while I was in Peace Corps. The exams were provided for. It was just wonderful. And it was really an eye-opening experience when you're in a community where people don't receive adequate health care. Right? Because I lived in a place where people did not receive adequate health care, and I had amazing free health care. And I think it was a really important learning experience and something to be grateful for. But there are other benefits and again, as we're going through, if you have questions at the end, we're going to leave time so you can ask us any of those things you're wondering about, like what we ate or, all those things that you might think about. But okay, so I just want to try to convince you even more of some good benefits for why you should do it. So if you go to Peace Corps, they will forgive portions of your school loans if you serve. That's a big deal. As any of you know who have school loans, they add up quickly. And Peace Corps wants to honor the fact that you've taken time out of your life to serve, and they'll help pay for school loans. They pay for all of your expenses to travel in and out of country, to get there and to get out, and if you need medical. Another thing, we didn't talk about this, but another thing that I loved is because I was somewhere else, it was cheaper for my husband and I to get places, right? Because we were already there. And so one of the nice things is when we were serving, we earned 2 days a month of vacation. And so my husband and I took them. We went to Europe, we took our vacation days because we were right there, right? You could go to the continent for cheap. And so that's a really good benefit. You also get a living allowance. And I would say that it's a better living allowance that I got in grad school. That's what I'll say about that. So we didn't want for anything. They give you enough to have food, to go out to dinner once in a while, to pay all your bills. So none of that's coming out of your pocket while you're living there. Oh, there's vacation. It's right there. You receive complete medical and dental, and when you get back, they have a GAP program where you can get health insurance through Peace Corps for a couple of months. I think last time I checked it was 6, but don't quote me on that, until you can get insurance on your own when you get back. Then also they train you again, so leaving the Peace Corps and having the ability to say, I worked in my field and was trained for 2 years, that's an awesome opportunity if you're wanting to get a job. And then there's no fee. There's no cost to you. You fill out the application, they place you, and they send you. So it's not costing you a thing, and you're really only getting really large rewards. So this this one on?
I think it's me. No, that is you.
Yeah, that's me. Okay. So then for me personally, I made lifelong friends in Peace Corps. So actually when I moved here to Utah, I moved here straight from Peace Corps. I actually Skyped for the interview for this job from Cape Verde, and that's how I got the job at SNO. But I had students who've come to visit me that I taught, and it's just been so wonderful. I still write to them. They send me pictures of their children. It's wonderful. So legitimate lifelong friends. Like I said, new culture, new language. It really increased my compassion. I would like to think that I'm a very compassionate teacher. If you have me in class, I hope you agree. But I really think that Peace Corps helped with that. It did, right? Like I think I have more of an ability to recognize that not everybody comes from the same place and is doing the same things. It made me super grateful. Let's just be honest. When you wash your clothes on a board and you take a bucket bath for 2 years, and you wait for a water truck to bring your water, you get really grateful for things. When we bought our first house and we put a washer in it, a washing machine, it was amazing, right? I just put those clothes right in there. It was amazing. So you're so grateful for all kinds of different things, and that's really good. And I had time. I was in school my whole life. I went to college right after high school, then I got a master's, then I got a Ph.D., and I was really tired. And I just didn't want to go straight to work. And it was a chance for me to really think over things, think about what I wanted to do, about who I was and what kind of person I wanted to be. And Peace Corps gave me the time to do that I think you don't really get in life. So.
Yeah, and for me, a similar situation. I've actually had, one of my Estonian students ended up being a exchange student at my high school and then stayed with my parents, and that was really great. To another one, he and his wife were traveling around the world on a motorcycle, and they decided to come to Wisconsin, and I happened to be back in the States when they did, and I was super excited about that. So that's been great. And again, I got to do exactly what I wanted to, experience these new cultures, learn new languages, even if I don't really use Estonian anymore, and people laughed when I spoke it when I was there. You know, but I learned enough Chinese that, again, I couldn't imagine traveling around China without having that basis and without having that culture. It made it so easy. I just traveled around that country by myself. Mm-hmm. You have no idea actually how hard. I don't even think I could do that now. I don't think I have the skills anymore. You know, you have to go with tours. You have to be organized. It is so tough. But like living there and having that experience, I got to see some amazing places and went to some students' homes out in the countryside and just learned so much more that way as well. And Peace Corps China definitely made me realize that I was an American. I always thought, no, I'm this very flexible, multicultural, global person. And then I get to China, and China is so different from anywhere I had ever been before. And I'm like, yes, I am an American, you know, I am part of this culture because it is so, I appreciated everything, but it was so left and right, east and west, just so different. So that was one of the things. Yeah, that one.
Okay, so benefits after service. So that's, I talked about that when you get transition funds. It looks like 7,000. Job placement. So Peace Corps will help you find a job. As a matter of fact, have you ever filled out a job application and always on the form it asks if you're a veteran? Do you know what I'm talking about? So the spot under veteran is Peace Corps. So if you apply for a federal job, right? If you apply for a federal job, it's the status right under being a veteran. So that puts you so much higher on the list to get those really competitive jobs just because you served in Peace Corps, which is really awesome. It actually helped my husband get a job he had for a while here. So health insurance, it's 18 months. Oh, I was wrong. It's 18 months after you get back that you can have a plan. There's a ton of returned Peace Corps volunteers, so everywhere you go, you'll have somewhere to stay and someone to help you, and we've experienced that in real life. And also, obviously, I'll tell you a really interesting story. When I applied for SNO, the provost at the time was the one from just sort of like hearing things, who saw that I was in Peace Corps and asked them to give me a look. And they did. And he was looking for someone who had international experience and could bring something maybe a little different. And they gave me a look that maybe I would not have gotten. And I got hired at SNO. And Peace Corps provides that kind of edge. People want employees who are willing to work and serve and learn about others. And Peace Corps totally gives you that. And there's scholarship opportunities. Once you finish Peace Corps, if you haven't gone to graduate school, there are scholarship opportunities for that as well if you've completed it. So.
You again, actually.
And then for me, well, I think that one's
Was
first.
it me?
Yeah. That's you.
Empathy with courage. Oh yeah, I guess this is me, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would actually not be a professor without this job. Because as I said, when people said be a teacher, my mind went through K through 12. And I'm like, no, I don't even like children. Are you kidding me? So Peace Corps China, I was actually teaching at a college of traditional Chinese medicine. And I'm like, this college gig, that's not bad, you know? And so I thought, well, why don't I go to Taiwan, because Taiwan is the best of East meets West. And I started looking at college there, and it was like, oh, they want a master's degree. And again, getting a master's, like, it never crossed my mind. You went straight through. I was just like, I got my my bachelor's, great, I'm ready. And so this idea of going to get a master's, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do that. And I got my master's, and I learned about these intensive English programs. And I'm like, wait, I can stay in the U.S. and still teach international students? This sounds fantastic, you know? And as she was saying too, you need to be flexible in all these situations because it's so different from what you're used to. And also, I feel like I have a great empathy with my current international students because I've been in their spot. I've been dealing with language. I've been dealing for a long time with a different culture. I've been far from home for a really long time. So I understand what they're going through. And as Cheryl mentioned, I am a Mahjong fanatic, which I never would have become if my students hadn't come over every week for 3 years to play Mahjong with me. So don't break your money, because I will beat you. And teaching me just some great cuisine as well. So those are just some of the personal benefits. Yeah.
So like I told you, it helped me get a job at SNO. And also because so Peace Corps will place you with a partner, but not with a boyfriend or girlfriend. So you have to be married let me back that up. Here's what happens. You can ask to be sent to the same place with your person, but they're not required to honor that. And so you could just get placed in separate places unless you're married. So fortunately we were married, so we got placed in the same place. But we had just recently been married, and it was really nice because I literally had no one on the island except him. So, as you can imagine, we were all we had for 2 years. And so that really helped. We're a pretty solid team now because of some of the things we survived together. And I talked about what it did for my students and things like that. But it was a permanent life-changing experience for me. What I always hear people say, I did a convocation on Peace Corps before, and all students and colleagues say the same thing. I've heard the same thing for all the years that I've been back from Peace Corps. And what that is I've never, ever heard a Peace Corps volunteer say, man, I wish I didn't do Peace Corps. But I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, I always wanted to do something like that, and I never did, right? Because life passes you by. Responsibilities come, things change. But there's a reason that Peace Corps so often takes people after college, because you're in a good place to do it, right? It's a perfect time. And it's something you'll never, ever regret. You just won't regret it, and that's the truth.
All right, so as you're saying, there's also graduate school benefits, not only the things that you get job-wise and loan forgiveness and all those other things. So there's the scholarships, assistantships, academic credits, stipends, all these things connected with various schools. So I was looking into actually one of those schools. I opted for something else, but it was nice to have that special option as well. So you have things like Masters International, which combines, and some of the people in China were doing that. So like I said, they were having this experience. They were still writing papers and doing research and those sort of things. And so we'll just kind of go through this quickly because I know we are running close on time. So how do you become a volunteer? So 18 years of age, which I actually think is a little strange because they do also really want most people to have a college degree or, as it says, 3 to 5 years of work experience. Commitment to public service, I'm going backwards. So before I went, one of the things I did was I did do some volunteer teaching to, I think it was Russian refugees is who I was working with. And expressed interest in a program area. And as we mentioned before, there are so many areas. Whatever you have majored in, they can find a use for you in Peace Corps. So it's really great that way. And then to apply, so it is a process because it can take 9 to 12 months, especially if you kind of like hold out for a particular area or if you want to go with your boyfriend and you're not married, all those sort of things. So, first you just decide and you fill out your application and there's an interview. And then if everything looks good, they can nominate you. You go in for a health checkup, and actually usually that is covered, or there's volunteers usually, like volunteer doctors who will do these. They're usually returned Peace Corps volunteers themselves that do that for you. Then you get your invitation that you can accept, and there's usually a staging here in the U.S. before you go over for your 3 months there. Okay. So it's been going, is it 50 years? It's probably 60 now, isn't
60,
it?
'cause I was 10.
We're up to 60, and this is the week of our anniversary. So if now it's time for, look on time,
We did
questions.
it. Good job, Jeannie. Anybody have questions? Oh, thanks. Sorry.
Remember to wait for us to bring the microphone to you.
He's got a mic.
The personal benefits sound amazing. What do you think it has also done for international relations between countries?
I often think about that, especially, we usually don't have great relationships with China. And so I'd love to see even more volunteers because you develop such friendships and you get to meet the real people and they get to meet you, not just what they see on the news or what you see on the news. So our goal is an exchange of cultures on both sides, and that's why I always look forward to giving presentations and talks about China and Estonia as well, because I think that is a great value, those personal connections. I always hope that, the Chinese government is less likely to bomb us because we have more and more friends there every year. That's
And I would just say too that I've said this for teaching, but I think it's true that time is worth more than money. And people know you mean it when you give them your time. There's nothing more valuable in the world than time. And when you go over and you serve someone's child, right, or you give 2 years of your life without being paid, people know you mean it, right? Like no one gives 2 years for free unless they mean it. And so I think that that's a real testament to caring, right? Like that people care. People from all kinds of different countries care about others. And I think that is a great testament for the U.S., right? That we have people here who care enough to give up 2 years to help someone. I think that is larger than any amount of, do you know what I mean? Like money we could give or policy, really, that we could make. Anybody else? I think this one, oh.
There's over there, yeah.
Was there over there or here?
Behind the barrier.
So, is this thing on?
Who's going first? You go.
I was looking it up, and it said parts in Europe that are currently under some political stuff. How often do they change the areas that you can go to?
Yeah, so Peace Corps is actually pretty on the ball with that. They change areas all the time. So the largest reason that they'll change where volunteers can go is because countries meet the requirements to no longer be labeled a developing nation, right? Like they've met those requirements. So like Cape Verde, I think 4 years after I left, it came off, right? So that's one reason that they'll change areas, because they've met those requirements. But as political instability happens, and it does in all kinds of countries, Peace Corps is responsible for getting all volunteers out, and usually they reassign. That's usually what happens. They don't just send people home. You can opt to go home if it gets disrupted, but usually they'll reassign for any sort of political instability, which does happen.
Yeah, they're coming back now after COVID, right? Everybody got brought home because of COVID, and they are just starting to send people back if they can. And China too. China kind of shut down the Peace Corps for a while for sort of like political reasons, and then it came back. So yes, there's various reasons and times it could change.
At what point did you realize that you were American? Like, yeah, like I don't, like what does that mean?
I know specifically. I can tell you the instance.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mail a letter. I wanted to mail a letter at the post office. That's all I wanted to do. I had my envelope. I figured out how to do this. Like I had it. And I go to the post office, and there's like 40 people in there. And I just want to get to the window to mail the letter, because that's all I want to do. And no one was in a line. No one was in a line. And I didn't understand. And they were just like jostling for position at the window. And I realized I was getting more and more irritated every second. Like in my mind, I was like, get in line, right? Like, get in line. Like, that's what you do. You stand in line. No, you don't. That's what Americans do. Yeah, that's what Americans do. The other people don't do that. They don't do it. And when I came back on the plane and I was at customs, we're back in Boston, and we're on a plane, and it's full of Cape Verdeans, and just my husband and I, and everybody shows up at the airport, and it's just mass chaos, and guess what? The first thing the U.S. Customs guy said, get in line. And my husband and I were like, high-fiving, yeah. Okay, so everybody got in line. It was amazing. It was so orderly. I loved it. But the reality is, just because we do something some way, it doesn't mean that everybody does. And that standing in line is totally American. Just going to tell you that right now.
Yeah, and for me, I think it was just my freedom of choice, all the choices that I've had. You know, it's just I could really feel like I could choose to be married or not, for example. You know, there wasn't a sort of cultural, you know, my parents weren't putting pictures of me up on boards trying to get me married or anything like that. You know, I could choose what I wanted to study. So many of my students came to me and said, I'm here studying because my parents wanted me to. I wanted to have a flower shop, and there's nothing made me sadder than like, oh, I wish you could just have a flower shop if that's what you wanted to do, you know. So I was so lucky. And at the same time, actually, Peace Corps, like I said, gave me choices. Because I feel like you can't make choices if you don't know what your choices are. And somehow I had never known that being a college professor was a choice I could make. It really never entered my brain until I was given that opportunity. And then it's like, oh, all right, I can do this. So that's one way. And there's so many others, but yeah.
And food.
Yeah. I think we're done for now. So thank you so much. Again, Professors Keller and Kleinhans.
Definitely food, Jeannie.
Oh, but I love Chinese food.
I do too.
It's real Chinese food is amazing.